Okay, so today sorry, my voice is messed up and I don't know why. Um, I had the idea to kind of share my hair dyeing process. I usually wouldn't do it because it can be a very long process sometimes depending on what I'm doing. It could take all day if I'm bleaching. Today I'm just dyeing my hair. And I think the reason why I felt compelled to share this specific one was for some reason it was making me very emotional today that I was dyeing my hair, even though I've done it like probably 100 times since I since I was a junior. Um, and yeah, my hair has been a very special process to me, and it doesn't really seem important necessarily, but it's very important to me, and I guess I wanted to share that because it might be important to someone else, and there's a really specific reason why it's important to me. I guess let's get ready. I'm actually gonna quickly change my pants. We look a little bit more rugged. No, I'm just kidding. This is my hair dyeing outfit. These pants are way too tight for me, so I don't really care if I get them dirty. Yeah, I was thinking about why this was such an emotional process for me today because I dye my hair all the time. Like, I think first started doing crazy things to my hair without permission when I was in the tail end of my junior year, which was a really tough year for me for a lot of reasons, but I guess I don't know. One day I woke up and I was in a big slump and I took a pair of scissors. And I just cut off all my hair. And that was kind of crazy for two reasons. Number one, I didn't ask anyone for permission, and a lot of, and that was very surprising to a lot of people. And the other thing that was kind of crazy about it was my hair was something that was very special to me. When I was a little kid, every time my mom tried to cut my hair, I would get so upset. Like when I tell you, my mom wasn't trying to harm me in any way, of course, but you need to get your hair cut eventually. I still don't cut my hair. I don't know if that's bad. um, Now I don't cut my hair, but when I was a little kid, it was so important to me to just like keep my hair at the length it was and continue seeing it growing, and it was one of I loved my hair, and it was one of the like only things at the time that I really loved about myself, and it really hurt my feelings whenever my hair was cut for no reason. But yeah, so I cut off all my hair, which it felt very cathartic. I don't know if that's the right word, but when I looked into the mirror, I felt very like freed, like I'd been chained to something and someone cut the chain. Except I was the one who had cut the chain. And yeah. And I think for a very long time I didn't really know why. I was like, wow, I must have just done this to be impulsive or because I wanted something different, but I couldn't actually put a finger on why I felt the specific need to cut my hair and to do so in such like a random and chaotic way. And for the rest of the year, I did a bunch of other crazy things to my hair. I cut it again, even shorter. Like my first haircut was maybe, acceptable. It was cute. It was like a fro. But it wasn't like really, really short. And then one day when I was in a hotel with my parents visiting my brother, I just had about 10 minutes before we had to leave. All of my stuff was packed, and I closed the doors to the bathroom, and I cut at least like 3 more inches off of my hair. And that was very frustrating to my parents, which makes sense because why would you do this? I didn't make a mess, right? Everything was perfectly fine. We weren't late, but it was just, I think because of the chaos of the moment, it's very frustrating. And I felt even more relieved when I did that. Like someone had lifted a burden off my shoulders And I looked kind of insane. It was actually a really even and good haircut considering the fact that I just cut. But it wasn't like what you considered like a cute haircut on its own. And then after that point, I started becoming really obsessed with the idea of dyeing my hair again, which was something that I did a lot when I was a kid. And I guess for the context of that, when I was like a little kid, I fought my parents on not like fought them, but I would not let it go. I would constantly talk about dyeing my hair. I would constantly ask them if I could dye my hair, and this went on like the second I learned about people with colorful hair is when I became obsessed with it, and I continued on asking about dyeing my hair for like I think at least at minimum a year before they finally let me. I think I was first allowed to dye my hair in like 3rd grade, which was pretty young, and it was actually kind of crazy my parents let me do that. Not it was a bad decision. It was crazy they let me do that because I was so young. And I feel like at that time parents kind of feel like if you're not doing what they want you to do, it's very tough on them. And they definitely did not want me to dye my hair, so it was tough on them in that area, and they still let me do it. So I was I don't know. And my mom actually was the first person to dye my hair. There's a lot of fights in that. I feel like I can't really have anyone do my hair because I have a specific way I want things to show up and turn out. And I always have a vision in my head, and when you're working with someone else, they have a different vision in their head. So there's conflict within that, which probably should have just sucked it up and been. I did suck it up at certain points, but I should have been better. I didn't really fight, but I was a very emotional kid, so sometimes I would like cry and stuff, and it was so overdramatic because you're literally dyeing your hair. Calm the fuck down. But yeah, I was a control freak and I wanted to be able to do my own stuff, and I obviously wasn't allowed to do that because, kids are messy, and my mom wanted to make sure nothing got on the walls and stuff, so we did it her way, and that was chill for a while, but I always had this dream to do it on my own. But by the time the summer of middle school rolled around, I randomly decided to chop off all of my dyed hair. And I think in middle school it kind of involved, I guess, a rebellion of sorts. Middle school is weird because in a lot of ways I was trying to rebel, and not consciously. I didn't do any of the stuff that you consider me a bad kid. In fact, most people would consider me like, I don't know, very well behaved. To be honest, even when I say I fought, I don't really fight. I'm more of just like, will explain my opinion, and if the other person doesn't listen to me, sometimes I get really upset and I cry, and I think that can be perceived as kind of manipulative. So a lot of people see it as like fighting, but I'm not trying to fight or be manipulative. I'm just crying, and I don't know why I do that. It's really annoying because I can't really have a conversation with anyone without feeling need to cry, so I just don't talk to people about how I feel because I'll just cry. And I feel like that's super manipulative to the other person, so I just don't do it. But yeah, basically during middle school I was experiencing a lot of medical health stuff. I was experiencing a lot of pain on a daily basis starting around middle school. I, for an earlier part, had like an undiagnosed condition, and that caused an extreme amount of pain in the form of light sensitivity, but I cannot even describe to you the pain. Like, I've broken a bone before. I've had migraines before. I don't know if they'd be considered migraines, but I've had headaches that lasted hours. Actually, this could kind of be compared to a really bad migraine, potentially. I don't know if I've ever had like a really bad migraine other than this, but this kind of felt like the most extreme, strong headache it felt like someone was stabbing a knife into my skull really hard, and it was like a searing pain. And even when my eyes were closed, I would get this light sensitivity, but every time I opened my eyes, I'd be in an extreme amount of pain. And I didn't tell anyone about this pain for a while because I thought must be a headache, because I was experiencing other types of pain. All of my muscles really hurt, which I think it was because I just wasn't moving my body. So I knew that was my fault. But the eye thing, over the course of weeks, the pain just continued to get more intense, and it got to a point where I was like having a breakdown, and I tried to explain to my parents like what I was feeling, because I was kind of masking it. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to be over dramatic, and I was finally got up the courage to tell my parents, and they didn't really believe me. So that started like a really big fight, because they thought I was being super over dramatic, and that because I cry a lot. I think because people tend to assume I'm going to be over dramatic because I cry a lot. I'm really not trying to, but in that instance, it was the most pain I've ever been in my entire life, and it lasted weeks, and it was constant. And I don't think anyone realized that's why, like, I stopped doing a lot of things because it was really painful, but I didn't want to tell anyone. Why am I crying? This was such a long time ago. But I don't know if I'm probably an emotional, but my period's probably coming up. But yeah, I didn't really do anything for a couple weeks, and I don't think this lasted a couple weeks. I think I had this pain for like at least a month, and I think more than a month. A couple weeks would be a month. I think I had this pain for probably like, it was a while, and I know it was a while because it was just draining my energy, and it was hard to hide, and I didn't want to have this conversation because I didn't want anyone to think I was being over dramatic, until it got to the point where I couldn't be silent, because even when my eyes were closed and I put my head on a pillow and I faced the ground, and like I was closing my eyes and my eyes were on the pillow, I was in the most extreme amount of pain. It got to a point where I couldn't do my schoolwork because looking at a computer was absolutely the most excruciating thing ever. Like, I was already in pain, and then looking at my freaking bright ass computer, I was dying. So I'm gonna stop complaining now. Basically, I had explained that I was in a lot of pain. My parents didn't really believe me, so we got into a fight because they thought I was being over dramatic, and I was just trying to get attention or something, probably. I'm assuming that. I don't know what they actually thought. But needless to say, we eventually went to the doctor. We went to the emergency room, I think, because my parents wanted to prove a point. And that doctor told didn't even check my eyes, and told my parents that it was nothing, and at most it was an eye infection, and that I was being super overdramatic. And she didn't shine a light in my eyes. She didn't do anything. We probably were in the room with her for like a minute, and she was like, "Yeah, it's nothing. Bye." Also, here's some like, did I get that in my mouth? Antibiotic eye drops. So then my parents didn't even believe me even more because the doctor had said it. So eventually like a week and a half passes, I think, and my brother has an eye doctor's appointment because he has a lot of issues with his eyes. And or not your business anyway. Basically, yeah. So my mom went to this eye appointment with my brother, and she was kind of talking about how crazy I was being, and that doctor was like, well, it seems like there might be something there. Why don't I just like check her eyes? It'll only take a couple minutes. And yeah, so I went to this eye doctor. I had at this point done a crazy amount of research, and I became set on the idea that I had uveitis because it was the only thing that made sense to me. And when I tell you, I had actually went to my computer and I had stared at the screen in so much pain for hours, and I looked for what it could be, and I read like medical journals that I didn't understand, and I tried to interpret as much as I could, and I was like, it has to be uveitis. And I thought specifically it was iritis. And I went to that doctor. I guess this is also why my parents thought I was being crazy, because I'd like kind of figured it out on my own, but I didn't really figure it out. I just wanted there to be something for the doctors to like investigate so that they wouldn't believe me, because it felt like if there's one direction, then they could check that. Anyway, so I went to the doctor, and she looks at my eyes for literally like less than a minute, and she's like, yeah, you have uveitis. And it was iritis, and I don't know, I felt really relieved. I ended up going to all the doctors I needed to, and it didn't clear up for like a year. For some reason, it was very resistant to all the medical stuff we were doing. I also was having GI issues at this point, but let's not even get into that. I was just having a rough time. I don't know why I went on that rant. Anyway, well, because I was rebelling. The fact that I told my parents about the pain I was experiencing, that was a rebellion of its own. But I think because I was rebelling, I also became more concerned with whether I was like actually a good person. And I became really concerned with how people perceived me. And I tried to do everything I could to be like this respectable person, and I felt that, I don't know, I felt like cutting my hair kind of helped me conform a bit more. Maybe it didn't, I don't really know, but when I cut my hair, I kind of looked in the mirror and I knew that wasn't me who I was looking back at, and it just felt really wrong that my hair wasn't a color. And I sat with that wrong feeling for the rest of middle school. And yeah, it just coincided with all the other things that I felt didn't really fit me. And I would like go to bed. This is so crazy, but I would like have, I just like, I don't know, maybe it's like I space out, but sometimes I space out and I just think of things and and I would always imagine myself with colorful hair. I would always draw myself with colorful hair. I always dreamed of myself with colorful hair, and I cosplayed characters with colorful hair, and I didn't dye my hair because I wanted to be like quote unquote respectable. And yeah, and a lot of other stuff happened, and a lot of other stuff happened, and I just wanted to be more of the person people like. So up until, and I continued that path like of extreme people pleasing and extreme trying to be the person people wanted me to be up until junior year, where I started struggling again with, I don't actually know what. And there was like no specific reason why I would be struggling so much with junior year specifically, but I swear the second I showed up to school, it was a rough like everything was hard, doing anything was hard, just existing was hard, and there was no reason for everything to have been as hard as it was. And I thought to myself, because there's things I'm not telling you, I've gone through things so much worse than just going to school, and I've never I've never just had this much of a struggle. And I don't know, I was just struggling, and I think because I was struggling again in a way that couldn't really be like, I didn't have a medical problem, it was struggle, and I think it was adolescence, but it was a struggle. I was going through it, and that made my parents uncomfortable again, and I kind of, I guess, felt that old rebellion kind of start to seep up again, because I knew I needed something, and I didn't know what. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I needed something to change. And I think that is when I cut my hair, because I needed to look back at someone different. And I cut my hair, no dye yet, and then, as I told you, I started to dye my hair like crazy. And I didn't know why, because I remembered just being so committed to having just brown, long hair for, I guess, at least 5 years at that point. And suddenly I was back to my old self where I was dyeing my hair, and it made me feel amazing. And it made me show up as a different person. Ew. And it kind of just felt great. It felt really great. And I just, even though I knew that wasn't what people wanted, it kind of allowed me to find myself, and allowed me to kind of just realize, for a long time I had lied to myself for a lot of different aspects of my identity, and that commitment to my old self, it really helped me realize a lot of things I had been lying to myself about, and it helped me kind of change for the better, where I no longer struggle, because I do think actually that it wasn't nothing I was struggling with, like right now, pinpoint the specific things, but it was a problem with how much I was willing to sacrifice for people to like me. And I kind of just realized that you can't try to sacrifice to have other people like you, because it's not in your control. You could do everything and people won't like you. Maybe that's not true. don't like go around being an asshole to everyone, but it's not in your control. And I dedicated my entire identity to being this like perfect person that people wanted. And the thing was, I was so unhappy in my life because I was never able to fit that perfect label, and I would hate myself for it because it's just what people expected of me, because I so easily for a lot of my life conformed to what people wanted me to be. And especially like when it came to grades and stuff, it was really hard for me in school, before, like freshman to sophomore year, and I kind of just I felt like a complete failure, and I know other people kind of saw me as that. And I think certain people thought that I guess I wasn't trying anymore to just be good. And yeah, so that's when everything came crumbling down, because junior year I realized that I really couldn't be the person that everyone else really wanted me to be, and I realized it was unrealistic. And I still was very hard on myself for a lot of the things like grades and whatever. And I don't know. Point is, I got out of it. Now oh yeah, the point being beautiful. I realized today I have this photo album, and it's all of my favorite photos of me, which sounds super narcissistic, and I was trying to think why I have this photo album, especially because I'm so embarrassed whenever anyone looks at my photos that they're gonna find this photo album. It just feels kind of wrong that that like those photos aren't full of other people, but I have this photo album, and all of my favorite, and I've had it for a very long time, all of those, my favorite photos involved most of those photos are like more recent ones. And I kind of just realized the reason why there's a lot more now than there used to be is because I more recently started feeling beautiful. And I guess I have a complicated relationship with beauty, because I don't want anyone in the comments going and saying like, oh, you're beautiful, because I feel like it's not just about necessarily conforming to beauty standards. Of course it is, partially because I feel like when you do, it makes you feel like you're wanted, and everyone wants to feel like they're wanted and in some ways needed, and it can be an ego boost. But I would say in probably sophomore year and freshman year, people would more say I conform to standard beauty standards, at least in aesthetic. And I was thinking about why I felt more beautiful now, and I realized it was because I was like truly being me in my outfits. Like the outfit I wore, a lot of people told me it was way too much to graduation, and I've never felt more beautiful in an outfit in my life. And in just all of the ways I've been expressing myself recently, I realized that I was truly being me, and that's what made me feel beautiful. And that sounds so cliche, but it's so true that the only way you can really love yourself is if you're being the version of yourself that is true to who you are inside. There is no amount of conforming to outside standards that will ever make you feel good enough. So, yeah, I'm dyeing my hair today, and I don't know if blue's my color. This is a lot darker than it's gonna show up. I don't know if I'm gonna cut my hair too. I don't know if anyone's gonna, at the end of this, think I'm beautiful. But I'm gonna think I'm beautiful, because I'm doing the haircut I want to do, and I'm doing the hair dye that I want to do. And I think it represents who I am on the inside, and I feel like that is what matters most. And that's obvious, that's a very obvious takeaway, but sometimes the things that are obvious aren't things that we'll necessarily let ourselves see. And I think, yeah, that's the moral of the story. You have to be you for you. I love you. Bye. I originally planned to film the entire process, but I didn't because I was getting overstimulated. I did film some bits, so if anyone wants to see it, I can post it, but I don't think any of the clips are good. It's more of just me getting, like, frustrated while filming, and then I eventually just turned the camera off. I'm like, I'm done. So yeah, this is the final result. I put on some makeup because I felt like that made it a bit more me. And just to bring some color to it, because realistically this is what I'll be wearing. I always, whenever I do dye my hair blue, I tend to wear more colorful makeup versus with other colors. I tend to go natural. I don't know why. I feel like the colorful makeup just looks better more often with blue or like brighter colors than it does with more dark, almost natural but like unnatural colors. So whenever I do dye my hair a bright color, I always try to, like, you know, make the most of it. So yeah, even though I was getting frustrated during the process, I feel like myself, and I feel like that's all that matters. I feel that that was almost the entire reason why I was, like, entirely what I was talking about for 20, like almost 30 minutes straight. So yeah, bye. Or bye for real.